Hi, this is Amir Anzur, and I have a very special guest with us, Dean Seddon, who is the founder and CEO of Maverick. And what he is an expert in social selling. So those that really want to understand how to use LinkedIn to its full power, Dean is the guy who can tell you how to make your first $10,000 in a month, and also just how social selling works. So Dean, how did you get started with LinkedIn, and where did your desire for LinkedIn come from?
Oh, well, first, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Where did I start? I started where everybody starts, desperation. But I didn't just kind of go on there and go, I want to do something. I had I had a business that was thriving, a marketing agency, and at the time I had a business partner. It was like a joint venture we were doing together, and I started on LinkedIn out of desperation because that relationship fell apart, and I was the marketing person behind the scenes, and he was the salesperson in front of the camera and doing all that stuff. So I was the person hiding behind the computer with the spreadsheets and graphics and all that stuff. And then suddenly I realized if I don't put myself out there, I'm done, because he set up a new business and I was the last to know until basically weeks before he left. So I went onto LinkedIn basically because I needed to. Um, I needed to go on there and find new business. And I had to make my first $10,000 or £10,000 in 30 days, or I was done. I was getting a job. So my back was absolutely up against the wall. And it's surprising what you do when your back's up against the wall. So how did I make my first $10,000? Or £10,000. I had the biggest motivation of my life, that if I didn't do this, one, I was deeply in debt and in trouble, but I would have to get a job. And I went onto LinkedIn and I only had one thing to sell. And I went, I'm going to push this thing on LinkedIn. Messages, content, that's all I talked about. And lo and behold, that's all I sold, back to back to back. And I made my first 10 grand in 30 days.
So you also talk about, I know one of your blog posts is about LinkedIn from scratch, the golden offer. So I think
Mhm.
this is a strategy that you
Mhm.
went for. So can you just explain to the audience
Yeah.
what is your recommendation if someone out there wants to make their first 10,000? We'll talk in
Mhm.
dollars just so it's more
Yeah.
international. How would you advise them to do it?
So, so the biggest problem with any kind of trying to sell something is cut through. Yeah. Cut through in content, cut through in message. So whilst I can do this and 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 I can do this, I'll give you the story. I I could sell email marketing, I could sell email blast, I could build websites, I could do graphics, I could do all this stuff. But if I went to LinkedIn with all of this stuff, I couldn't focus, I couldn't pitch anything, it wasn't clear. So I just went to LinkedIn at the time and said, we can promote your business on LinkedIn with messages and content. We'll send messages, we'll connect, create content for you, and it's this price per month. And because I had something clearly defined, I told them exactly how many contacts we were going to message and reach out to every month. I had it so defined, people went, do I want it? Do I not? Yeah, I'll go for it. And that's all I did. I had a defined offer with clear outcomes. I'm going to talk to 100 of your decision makers every month for you, and then hand them over to you as ready to go conversations. And that's what I did. So this golden offer, this compelling offer, is not rocket science. It's just being really clear on not just what do I get for my money. I'll write a post for you. I'll connect with people. It's like, I am going to talk to 100 of your decision makers every week and ask them for a meeting with you. Do you want me to do that? So it becomes a no brainer because that's what they want. So your offer has to have some clear definition, but a clear outcome. I'm going to get you talking to 100 of your decision makers every month. So an offer is just, it's focused, it's clear, the outcome is tangible. In other words, people know whether it's happened or not. And there's a time scale to it.
So you said I will do 100 people per month and I'll charge you £2,500 per month, and you just have to do it for 1 month. Is that how you got it?
I said there's 3-month trial period. So we had them for 3 months and we kept most of them. I've still got, even now, one of those customers is still with me, like years and years and years later.
Yeah. And were you targeting just the UK or international? Where were you getting your clients?
It was all UK. It was all UK. And at that point, I didn't crack the final part of the offer, which would have made it even better, which is having it clearly defined for one specific type of business. So I was saying to everybody, I can help put you in front of 100 people every month. What I realized was there was some people I was really good at doing that for, and some people I was really bad at doing that for. And so by focusing, if I could go back in time, if I'd focused my offer on one group of people or one type of business, all of that learning would have been transferable for me, and all of that success would have been transferable for my clients, because I'd focused on one particular group. So I had all that kind of intelligence to know, this works there, this works there. Whereas going for lots of different verticals or different targets, I ended up with, I didn't know what would work for each business. It would always be a bit different.
What vertical did you end up going for that you think you were like the world's #1? Is that you can?
So we are, and we offer this service to this day. We are the best at high transaction businesses in technology services. So selling technology software and engineering, IT, that kind of stuff. And the complete opposite, manufacturing businesses.
Okay. So then and in the UK, right? So how
and US.
Oh, okay. So you do English speaking part of the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say. How do you differentiate between UK and US? I guess your inbound leads come from both places.
Yeah. But it's interesting that we've basically perfected a skill in those two sectors, that we know them inside out, we understand them, we know what works, what doesn't. And that allows us to speak to them, to market to them, and to pitch our services to our customers, because we understand their customers.
Amazing. And this is how you now teach others to do the same as well, right? So now you teach others. You've got a great website, maverick.io. You say to people, work on your golden offer, network like a pro, leverage live interactions, the art of the follow-up, content is important. Can you talk through this?
Yeah, so we kind of developed a model for this we called the 7 steps. If you look on LinkedIn, most people are trying to sell. There's kind of 2 camps. There's 2 camps on LinkedIn. There's the content crowd, and they're like, I'm going to post out all this amazing content and all the business is going to come to me. Right? Now, that can work, but it's a bit like buying a lottery ticket. Yeah. It doesn't work for everybody that they can build a business off the back of inbound, 100% inbound. It's very difficult to do and scale. Then you've got the other extreme of people where it's like, it's all outbound, right? So you have the content people and the pitchers. Yeah. And what we've done is we built a model that kind of merges the two together, which is what we say is true social selling. So it's like, we start at the beginning. That person has got to be connected to you. You've got to get the connection. And we've got a whole list of strategies of how you connect with people successfully, whether they're active, not active, or they're, super active, like posting every day kind of thing. Then the next phase of that is actually kind of You got to break the ice. These are still complete strangers, right? On LinkedIn, they're complete strangers. So nobody buys from a complete stranger. So that's where you kind of break the ice and you build some awareness. And that's where content can be useful. That's where engaging with them in various different ways can be helpful. Break the ice, right? No decision maker is going to give you £100,000 contract because you asked for it. They're going to want to know who you are and what you're about. They're going to want to explore that. So do as much relationship building and value building before you ever outreach. So we connect, we build awareness. Then we've got to build some interest. What's their pain points? What's their challenges? What are the things that are keeping them up at night? What are the things that are a high priority for them? And there's various tactics we use to understand that before we ever go in for the kill. And then the final bit before we go to the ask is the conversation. How do we strike up conversations with people who are busy, are getting 5 other pitches per day? How do we get through all of that? What's the best approach to do that? And then the last one, which everybody cocks up, is the ask, asking for the time. Most people think the ask is, will you buy from me? It's never that. It's, can I get a conversation? That's all we're trying to do. Can we get a conversation with this person on Zoom or Teams or wherever? What do we have to do to get that conversation? And on the conversation, we can unlock the opportunity.
So you never pitch an offer via messaging or on a website. You'd never say it's going to cost $2,000 to work with me. You try to always say, can you have a Zoom conversation with me? And then in that conversation,
in our social selling, we would not pitch in the messages. So we wouldn't say, hey, we can do this for you. But in websites and all that stuff, I talk about publicly posting your offer, because if people see it and they get familiar with it, it can reduce the friction down the line. If they go on a call and they know what you do, it's better. So, but generally these days we're dealing with people selling much bigger ticket items. So there's never really a price anyway, because it's a bit of this and it's this. Everything's a bit more customized. So if somebody's selling a 50 grand thing, or 50 grand consulting package, or 50 grand outsourcing package, or the biggest one we did was a £4 million contract, there's so many variables, you can't sell it in messages, even if you tried. So the only way to do it is to get to a conversation. And we've adopted that as a model of pretty much nobody buys without a conversation.
so when you started out, you were doing all the conversations with your potential clients?
Yeah, I was doing the 7 steps myself, messaging people. I was the sole salesperson. I had graphic designer and people who were working for me, that when we lost all our, we split the business and I was underwater, and I was salesperson in chief. So I had to get into the messages and talk to people and book the appointments and do the calls, all of that stuff. Still do some of it now, because obviously I teach it, so I have to practice what I preach.
And were you able to close most of those deals on one conversation, or were you like, did they say, then send me the proposal, and then you sent them some proposal and then you followed up?
Typically, just because I don't know whether this is a scathing attack on Britishness, but generally we don't make decisions very easily. So I basically would have a call with them, tell them how much it was, confirm it, and then we'd agree a time and to go ahead. Like, we'd more or less have the deal done, but they'd want the proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'd say yes, and then we'd go for it.
And are you finding that you have a different way of selling to Americans as opposed to British, or is selling?
Selling, but I think the US market understands the importance of marketing and investment in marketing and stuff like that more so than Brits. I think very often, maybe this is me idealizing Americans and rubbishing British people, but I think my experience has been that American culture understands that you have to invest in marketing and you have to invest in things like that to make a return. Whereas in British culture, a lot of marketing is perceived as fluff. So I'm not saying that I think generally speaking, American culture, or my vibe is that American culture is more open to opportunity than perhaps British culture is. I think we're a little bit more we're a bit more cynical.
But you're finding that, because I look at economics, so GDP per capita in the US is $72,000 per year per capita. UK is about $43,000, and there's 66 million people in the UK and 330 million in the US. And I just find that they're much more business oriented and entrepreneurial. So do you think a lot more businesses in the UK over time are just targeting, especially as we move more and more online, to open up that market? And is that what you encourage your clients to do as well?
Well, there's the difference in pricing between the US and the UK is strange to me, because when you look at marketing as a service in whatever industry, the US generally invests better in marketing than the UK. So in other words, you spend more than the UK does. That's my experience, is people are prepared to do it. Having said that, though, when you look at differences in kind of general how much things cost in the US versus the UK, everything's more expensive here. But for some reason on B2B services, I don't know whether this is across the board, but at least my experience has been that Americans get the sense that marketing is you get what you pay for. Whereas in the UK, it's like, let's do as little as possible and try and squeeze as much as possible out of it.
And
Not that
when
we're generalizing at all here, by the way.
Of course. But when you were selling these services, was it a done for you service? And is that what you recommend? Or was it like a teaching service? Like, I'll teach you how to do this on LinkedIn, or was it, I'll do it for you?
So we started with a done for you. So we did a done for you service. We still have the done for you service today. But more and more people was approaching us, and they didn't have the budget and wanted to do it themselves. So that's how we launched our kind of training side, where we teach people how to do it. So we did the done for you and then taught people how to do it. And then the training piece overtook the done for you. So right now we're about 40% of our business is done for you and 60% is training.
So although you recommend when people are starting out to start off with one offer and one service or whatever, one offer and one price, you have branched out. So you have multiple things that you're selling on your site, multiple offers.
So I think the key thing is, I was one person selling one thing so I could cut through. I built something up, and then from a position of strength, I could diversify and add more things. I think what a lot of people do is they approach LinkedIn or approach social media or anywhere and go, if I have multiple offers, I've got more chance of selling something. And so they don't diversify from, we're doing really well in one area, let's add something in. They go, we're going to LinkedIn and we need to get something, so let's go with everything. So I always say to people, start with one thing, get that working, make good money, get something predictable before you add a second or third thing. And of course, with the advantage of scale, having 40 people in the team, and at least 7 of them are a sales or marketing team for us, I've got the advantage of multiple people being able to sell and promote multiple things. But when I was a solopreneur, I couldn't do that.
And would you say done for you is better, usually easier to sell than teaching, training something?
Yeah, so done for you is way easier to sell. It's the easiest thing because it's like I pay you money and I don't have to do anything. I just wait back and get the lead. So it's absolutely easier to sell. The downsides of it are that obviously it's not as profitable as training. There's more labor involved, more hands involved. All of our stuff is done by humans, so there's not like robots. Everybody's employed, all that. So it's a lot more costly as a service to deliver, but it's easier to sell. Training for us, I enjoy the training more because I love meeting people and helping people and that stuff. So I enjoy that more. But obviously people don't know what they're going to get with training. Is this just going to be another LinkedIn thing where you'll tell me my profile picture needs improving, or are you actually going to give me a system to win business?
And when you do the LinkedIn outreach, are you doing through robots, or is a human? Let's say if I outsource my LinkedIn to you, let's say you like software companies, right? So like, let's say I'm a software company selling a SaaS product.
Yeah.
Do you ask for my username, password, and then you start adding people, and then you give me the scripts and everything is kind of done for me? How do you
Yeah.
work?
So very similar to how you would hire a LinkedIn VA.
Yeah.
The difference is that the person that we put behind you is actually in contact with you. They're crafting the content as you. What do you want to talk about? What are the topics that matter to you? And then who are your key prospects? So it's there's no robots. There's no like it's actual humans based in my office serving clients.
So you have a physical office
Mhm.
in I don't believe you're in the UK, in London. You're in Plymouth or somewhere else, right?
Plymouth, yeah,
Plymouth,
yeah. So
yeah.
where the Mayflower left for the US.
Okay. Okay. So you from Plymouth, you have an office and you
Mhm.
trained up. You went from a solopreneur to having what, 30, 40 people now in your
Mhm.
company. You hired them, you trained them, you taught them what you learned, and now
Mhm.
they're implementing it on behalf of your clients.
Yep.
And you tend to sell to bigger companies rather than startups, right? Because I'm guessing they have more budget as well, right?
So let's just I'll get in trouble with LinkedIn, but I'll say it this way. If you're selling a $300 thing, right, you cannot afford to spend time prospecting. So let's say you're a solopreneur and you sell a £300 thing or £1,000 thing. You can't afford to outsource that to somebody who's going to talk to somebody who's going to pay, because it will cost you a small fortune to get a sale. So I always say to people, if you're selling something under £1,000 or $1,000, your route is either do it yourself. Yeah, that's the best option. Or you need paid ads. Really. I mean, you could robot and fire out and pummel messages, but I don't know what state your LinkedIn account would be in after you've done that.
Mhm.
So we've really focused on the people where they're selling something that's £10,000 or more, $10,000 or more, because there is a need for a bigger conversation with that prospect before they actually buy something. So if you're selling if you're selling under $1,000,
Mhm.
do it yourself or get ads. The gap between $1,000 and $10,000 is really it's a kind of maybe not space to have it done for you. I mean, you could get a cheap done for you, but I don't know how that would work in terms of return on investment versus, costs.
And you did work at another marketing agency where you were doing, I don't know, Facebook ads and different types of ads. But now with Maverick, you've gone all in on LinkedIn, right? You're
Mhm.
basically, this is your focus. You're
This is
saying
it.
that
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the focus, and people selling high, what's the minimum, like $3,000 or so?
Yeah, once you're into that kind of $2,000-3,000, it's something we can look at as a provision on our managed service. But really, you're in the sweet spot of where you should either be doing it yourself or ads.
Mhm.
There's kind of this gray area between that kind of 2,000 and 10,000 where it could go either way depending on what you sell and how you do it.
And do some entrepreneurs work with you as well to say, I'm making zero right now, help me make my first $10,000?
Yeah, so we would put them through our programs rather than put them through the managed service, because what we often find is the people doing zero, they need quite a bit of work in shaping that offer and putting that together and putting their content strategy together. And what we don't want to do is have a scenario where somebody signs up for our managed service and they're trying to figure out their offer whilst paying us to get them business.
Mm.
Because that's a recipe for disaster, because all that will happen is we'll be trying to prospect as they're trying to figure it out, and we're basically have a moving goalpost.
Mhm.
So we would put somebody through a program and say, let's build your offer and let's support you for 3 months in putting it together. The same people who do the kind of done for you would actually help you, but you would implement most of it yourself. And then if you want us to do it, then you're in a place to do it.
So can you give us an example of someone who started with no idea what they were going to sell and kind of came up with an offer and made their six figure? You have this
Yeah.
six-figure LinkedIn. What's like an example or two?
So one of the typical ways we do it is if somebody's selling their knowledge, which is a lot of kind of consultants and coaches and people like that, subject matter experts, they will come in and they've typically come from a corporate job. They want to go on their own. They've got a bit of a network, so they've probably already got some gigs lined up, but they're gigs from contacts they've built up. So they don't really have to prove themselves. They don't really have to sell anything to, a complete stranger. There's people who've known them for years, know what they're good at, and it's like, hey, I can come in and do a day rate for you. So they come out of the corporate world. They've got this kind of day rate deal going on where they've sold pretty easy, but then they go, well, I need more than that. I've got my basic costs covered, but I need more than that. So they'll basically have an idea of what they want to sell, but when they come to LinkedIn, they realize, now how do I say this? How do I communicate the value of this? I had half an hour to talk to my contacts and persuade them. How do I tell people in content? So we'll put them through what exactly are you selling? What's the price point? All of that stuff. Break down the offer, scrutinize the offer, like ask some very difficult questions. And then they'll rebuild an offer which is defined, clear, measurable, all of that kind of stuff. Then we'll go, right, okay, how many leads do you need? And we'll work the whole process out. Right, you need 10 calls a month to hit your target, or 2 calls a month, or 3 calls a month, depending on their price point. And then we build the LinkedIn plan for that. And at that point, they can go, right, I'm going to do it myself. And we show them exactly how to do it themselves and coach them and support them. Or they can go, right, do it for me. Then they're in a place where they can do it. So we've got clients who've gone through this process, building the offer from scratch, and they're now booking all the calls, converting them. We had a client who came to us actually thinking about quitting their business. And he has a gripe with me because I'm terrible on email. But he was really at the end of his tether thinking about quitting his business. He came in we put it all together. He was struggling with it, frustrated. He went to market and he was about to quit because he was like, I've had so much energy. I know we've done all this work and got everything ready, but I just want to quit. I don't need this stress. Let's go do something else. I'll go get a job or something. And he made his first full £12,000. So what's that? Like $15,000. Basically, in the month he was going to quit, before he even launched, he was going to quit. And we said, no, you're doing this. You will do this. You will do this. And he did it and closed, banked, paid 12,000.
He was selling his knowledge. He sold one
Yeah.
offer for 4,000 pounds or so and sold 3 of them? How did?
Been in a corporate, for years, all the expertise, proper credible person, but the frustration of trying to convince people at distance was just doing his nut in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, I've got something really good. I know it's good. I know it can help people, but something's being lost in translation. And that's what we had to fix before we could get anywhere with him.
And these solopreneurs that are starting off, do you recommend they start off using their own brand like deanseddon.com, or do you say like use a company name, or does that really just depend?
It generally depends, but people buy into people before they buy from people. So it's always going to be easier for a person to connect with a person. So it's always going to be people first.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to have a company page and do all of that stuff and build the company brand, but that's quite, if I'm starting out and I've got limited time and limited budget, I will build my brand and then build the company brand once I've got everything working.
So when you started off with Dean Seddon, you started posting. Did you start posting and say to yourself, "I'm going to post one thing every day around LinkedIn," or did you give yourself a target, or even if you were to do it again today, would you say I would post around LinkedIn and its importance every day so people see that value, or not?
Yeah, so I post multiple times a day, but I started out going at it once a day, every day. It didn't matter whether it was good, bad, or ugly. I posted once a day, every day, without fail. And I look back, I've been posting on LinkedIn since 2013, so 10 years. And a lot of my old posts were horrific. But I just posted and connected and talked to people. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's generally what I'm doing every single day. I mean, today, even though I've got a sales team, I was talking to about 20 people on LinkedIn today.
How, and you were saying that your old posts were horrific. What's a bad post compared to a good post?
Okay. So if we're talking about what's horrific, there's two parts of how I would define horrific. There's the personally horrific in the sense of, I can't believe I put that up. That's so embarrassing. Or really dodgy graphics. Do you know what I mean? Like there's that kind of personally horrific. But when it comes to kind of businessly horrific, it's more about getting the content that actually helps you win business. So I always talk about this kind of 3 types of content. There's attract content, which will get you the most visibility, but is the most or the least relevant to your topic. They're good at getting you attention and eyeballs and visibility. You got nurture content, which is valuable to your prospects. And that's kind of gets decent traction, but not as good as the attract content. And then you got the final one, which is convert content. And that's the stuff that helps you get leads, generate interest, drives traffic, all of that stuff. Most people will go to the extremes. They will either be producing the selfies, telling them about their sore toe, or they'll pimp out their children on LinkedIn. And there's nothing wrong with it. You can do what you want on LinkedIn. It's your LinkedIn, but that gets you lots of attention, right? So that's quite addictive because you get all the validation of the likes, the comments, and the impressions. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every now and then I go, do you know what? I'm going to do a post like that, make myself feel better. There is some utility in doing it as well, in terms of keeping your account visible and all that stuff. The convert content actually works the opposite way around. If you post too much of that, basically you become invisible. Yeah, because you're promoting all the time. So what I've found over years and years of doing this, and it's really strange, right? When you talk to corporate people, so bigger companies, they're posting a ton of promotional content. Kind of like that's all they do, really. Then you go to the small business and solopreneurs, And they're the other extreme. They're posting about, you know, what they had for breakfast, and they're on a run and on a jog, and so you end up with this weird scenario where some people end up in Paris Hilton syndrome. Yeah, they're famous. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows everything about their lives, but nobody can tell you anything about what they do. And the corporates, the opposite, they're totally invisible. But the people who do know them know they work for that bank. That's what they do. And it's exact, but it's a tiny number of people. And actually, the reality is, if you want to succeed at LinkedIn, you kind of have to balance those two worlds. You go too far one way and you become famous for nothing. And the other side, you become invisible but focused.
Wow, amazing insight. And what would you say LinkedIn, it's not in danger of going away? Is it only growing? Are people spending more time viewing their LinkedIn timelines?
So LinkedIn's got its problems. There's no denying that there's some major problems, but to put it into context, LinkedIn passed, I'm just getting the facts on this right. LinkedIn passed the billion users this week. So it's passed its billion users. And let's put this in context. LinkedIn's also cleared out and purged a ton of dormant accounts over the last 6 months as well. So they're getting rid of accounts and still growing. So I don't think LinkedIn's going anywhere, particularly as they're launching AI features, which are pretty clever. I've had a go at some of them, they're pretty cool. So that's all exciting. I do think the nature of LinkedIn is changing, because I think the nature of business is changing. And weirdly, I think it's going backwards, right? So we've had this period of tech, and automation. And I'm not saying automation's going away, far from it. But I think what's happening is that the more so now we are valuing personal connection. And so both things are true right now. We've got AI, technology, innovation, but personal connection and personal relationships are becoming more and more valuable. So I think LinkedIn is going to go through some changes. The nature of business has changed because we are a bit more personal than we were professional now. It's a little bit more relaxed than it was generally. And I think in amongst the automation, the AI and all that stuff, which is cool, people are going to value human relationships more.
What is some of the great AI stuff that's coming up on LinkedIn that you see?
So one of the best ones is obviously, well, let me give you the easy one. LinkedIn's got its AI post drafter. So now when you write a post, you can click in there and AI will help you write a post. So you can start saying what you want to talk about and it will draft something for you. There's going to be good and bad with that, in that some people will just put robotic content out, but it will encourage some people to actually start putting stuff out because it will give them something to edit. And it will make it easier than going to Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff. You just start typing and go. So that's already out for a lot of people. The exciting thing for sales and sellers on the platform is LinkedIn's now predicting buyer intent by its algorithm, AI and machine learning and algorithms. So when you go into Sales Navigator, it can now predict the buying intent of different companies. So that's pretty cool. When you're trying to search for people using Sales Navigator, and this is a new feature that's not out yet, but will be shortly, you'll be able to get AI to help you build a search of prospects, which could be really interesting for people where their ideal customer doesn't really fit into an industry or a particular job title. It could help them refine their search and find more people more accurately. And then the third one is LinkedIn's using AI to pull intelligence. So what will happen is you'll go onto a company profile and it will pull all the key insights from the internet and give you snapshots of this could be a challenge for their business. Maybe this is something useful for you. So it starts to pull information into a dashboard for you that says, here's some of the big pressing priorities based on what we've analyzed from the internet. Might be worth thinking about these things in the way you approach this company.
Wow. And you post a lot of great content. Do you just think of it and go to LinkedIn and just do it, or do you plan out on a Sunday you're going to post these things over the week? How do you do your content planning?
So I have this weird issue. So I encourage people to actually plan it and write it in advance. But I have this weird issue whereby I can write content in advance, but on the day I don't feel like it. So I end up writing stuff anyway. So I don't know why that happens, but sometimes on the day I've written something and I go, I'm not feeling it. So I write something else.
Oh,
So
wow.
not necessarily the best practice, really, but it's something that's weird with me.
And what do you feel about video, like having 1 minute videos? I'm seeing some people do it, but I don't see many views and things on it. Does LinkedIn prefer written content, do you think, or you have no opinion on that?
Oh, well, I have an opinion. So I have lots of opinions about this. So my experience has been that, well, I've got two experiences. My experience has been that if you are a smaller account on LinkedIn, video is better for you. I'll tell you why in a second. If you're a larger account, it does not matter what you do. You can do whatever you like because you have the momentum of an algorithm behind you. So you can do text, you can do carousels, you can do images, you can do whatever you want, and it all kind of works. But what I've found that works well with smaller accounts and
What do you
is
mean by smaller account, by the way?
you're under 10,000 connections.
Mhm.
What I've found is that generally speaking, there's two types of content that work really well: selfies and videos, short videos. And the reason they work is because people can connect with you more personally. So I've always been video and photo based. I've had various different bits, but I've always, at least for the last few years, put my photo somewhere in the feed on a regular basis. And when I don't, I suffer with low reach. And when I do, it goes up like a rocket. And I think that's because people have got to know me that happens. I wish it wasn't true because I don't really have the face for it, really, right? But when I do a video, I can get into the biggest video I've ever done was 376,000, and that was me talking for 60 seconds,
What did you
right?
talk about out of interest?
Something about LinkedIn. I was just saying, this is a crazy thing to do. Don't do it. And everybody agreed with me.
And then how many bookings? Because I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, it says somewhere it says like book a call, or how many calls or leads would you have generated from 370,000
Okay.
video?
So, um, probably not as many as you think. Maybe about 30 or 40.
Wow.
Not huge numbers. But generally my content, I try to stay always in the bounds of my topic. So I rarely venture out into, oh look, I'm on holiday or stuff like that. I don't tend to veer out. No problem if you do. You can do what you want. But I generally don't because I feel a bit uncomfortable doing it. I'll do it every now and then. So I've done probably, if you analyze my account, I could probably 10 times my reach. So in the last year, I've done about 24 million impressions across LinkedIn. But I could probably maybe not double. I could probably put could probably put another 12 million on that if I went personal. But I don't, because for me, I don't want to build a big crowd of people who can't buy from me. And that for me is important. You know, I've met people with double, triple, quadruple the following, and we've had calls, and they ask me how much am I making, and I go 1.5 million, and they go, they're barely making 10 grand a month, because I've stayed focused. It's harder to grow. It's much harder to grow because generally speaking, the decision makers I work with are more circumspect. They're more cautious. They're more aware of what they're engaging with. They're less excitable, but they pay big money. Versus if you go right down into the small business market, a lot of them will engage more, but obviously can't buy your services. So I've kind of really focused on making sure my LinkedIn is palatable for the people who will pay me the big money.
So you've got 61,000 followers. Off that following, you've created a $1.5 million, 1.5 million pound business. But you also have a team of 30, 40 people. Are they bringing in, or are you the core person that's bringing in?
No, we've got an events marketing team. They bring in revenue as well. And then we've got our sales team, and they bring in revenue as well.
Wow. And you're coaching them to put out specific content. Do you ever say to your people, here's a template of content and go use it, or you let them be creative?
If we're running a major promotion, then maybe, but you know, there are some templates for junior members of the team who are new and maybe, you know, aren't customer facing. So we do have some things that they can say, hey, here's some stuff to post. But we don't kind of force people and say, right, here's the copy, go post it. We really want them to. It's good for us if they learn how to work it for themselves.
And are you all in on LinkedIn, or do you use like Instagram or Facebook or any of the other platforms as well, or you just use LinkedIn?
So I follow the same strategy for LinkedIn as Instagram. And obviously I've neglected all my other socials when I moved over to LinkedIn, got one working and then moved on to the others, right? So my Instagram is probably the second in the priority list, shall we say. My Instagram is second, and it's tiny compared to my LinkedIn. But I'm getting 2 or 3 inquiries a week inbound from Instagram. It's much harder on Instagram because you can't find exactly the right people, and it's much harder to do all that kind of stuff than LinkedIn. And then third is my Twitter.
So you still use them even though it takes up a bit of your time,
Yeah,
but not.
I'm using them every day, but it's much slower because I can't target as accurately as I can on LinkedIn.
Okay. And do you add people daily? Is that like part of your thing, to add 10 people? Some people say add 10 people a day or something like that.
On LinkedIn, yeah, every day I add 20 people.
Who are you targeting? Are you using Sales Navigator and you target
I use Sales Navigator. I target our profiles. We've got a few key things, obviously manufacturing and technology businesses.
Yeah.
And we just grow our networks every day, share content, build relationships, and eventually get to a point where we ask for a conversation.
Wow. And you use Calendly to schedule something with you, yes?
I don't, believe it or not, I have Calendly. We use Calendly as part of our email list because we built a big email list from all of our stuff that we do. So I use Calendly in like our email list, but I never use Calendly in a conversation. So I'll have it available for people to book, but I never use, if somebody's talking to me, I will open up Calendly and say, are you free Tuesday at 2? They'll say yes, and I'll do it. if we're having trouble with dates, I will then send the Calendly. I just find sending the Calendly link to people can be a little impersonal, particularly if you've started the conversation and then they go, yeah, sure. And so I like to do the extra bit.
I'm finding that myself as well. Like now I'm reaching out to people when I send a Calendly link. A lot of the percentage of people that actually follow through, it comes down. And I read somewhere it's better to just give them 2 times to say like, and then it's also, it gives you more control of your own calendar, like you know when you want it. But yeah, that's really fascinating. So great. And do you think you could train up anyone to build a 6-figure LinkedIn business, or who's your sort of audience that you would say actually these guys have the most power to do that? If you're a fresh university graduate, you might not do it as quickly.
Okay, so unlike, say, I'm not going to help you get a gazillion followers and then build an email newsletter off the back of it and monetize it. That's not my bag. I can help people where they have a high value item to sell, services. So you have to have something high value where the ROI makes sense to invest your time on LinkedIn. I have the view that it has to, if it works with 200 people, it'll work with 20,000 people. So that's the way I approach it. I don't go, when you get to 20,000 people, it'll all work. No, no, no. It has to work with 200 people, and it has to be viable with 200 people. So we will usually assess it based on the person who's coming to us. Does your offer stack up? If you've got 200 people in your network, would that work? So that's how we assess it. It's not really assessed by industry or anything like that. The only thing we have to watch with, and this is just experience, is that there's some people who maybe just need to do a bit of maturing before they go to market with their own business. It's tough. It's difficult. There'll be resistance. And we're always going, if you're a startup, you need to make a couple of sales yourself, because that first few sales takes you from theory to reality. And we don't want to be in your theory to reality period, taking money from you and then chopping, changing, and having that bit. So we'd say make a couple of sales, learn from those sales first, then we can help you.
And do you give sales coaching advice as well, like how when someone is on a call they can close and get the deal?
All the way from the beginning to the end of the call, follow up, proposal, the works.
Wow. Okay, great. And so then what would you suggest? Now I'm doing these podcasts. Should I upload the native file? Like I've just done this with you and tag you. Like some people just take a 1-minute clip and then post that. Or I could send the link to the YouTube channel. What would be the best way to disseminate knowledge like this?
Oh, so you've asked a complicated question. It depends what your goal is. So for an example, if my goal is to get subscribers to my YouTube, I would make the snippet and send people to YouTube. If my goal is to get subscribers to my podcast, I would send people to my podcast. If my goal is to get people to consume the content and see the value of it, I'd put it natively on LinkedIn. So it may well be that your strategy actually needs to be a mix of things, getting people to see it and getting people to subscribe. But what happens if you send people away is, I'll just give you an example. Let's say we did this and put it up and you put a link to YouTube. It's likely that what will happen is some of the people will go and click and consume it, but they won't spend any time or engage with the post because they've navigated away. And so what happens often on the app is people come back and the post is gone and they're back into the feed. You don't get the engagement on the post. And so the visibility of that YouTube link struggles.
So, but on LinkedIn, you can put a 1 hour video natively.
I'm
I
not
think.
sure on that. I've never put a 1 hour. I think you can do 60 minutes. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I think I've done a 1 hour live,
Hmm.
so maybe you can get away with an hour.
And what I did was I was posting a lot like these 1 minute videos. I wasn't getting too much engagement, like 10, 20 people. But what I was finding when I was running into my network in London and around the world, they were like, hey, I'm seeing your videos, but they never hit the like button. They never commented. Is there like a thing that says, you know, for every one comment, like 10 people have probably seen it? Or do you have like figures like that? Is there a known thing?
It generally varies. It generally varies. I used to say, but it's not true anymore. I used to say for every like, it's roughly about 40 views. Um, that's roughly about what I saw, but it is different now. It is quite a bit different. But around that kind of one engagement to 40 is probably, you know, around about where it is.
Awesome, Dean. Really amazing insights. And how do you keep learning about LinkedIn? Do you just consume a lot of content? Because you are the guru. I've been to your trainings in London as well. Like really amazing insights. You've got over 3,000 members of your six-figure accelerator.
Mhm.
Yeah, but how do you keep in learning? Is it just experimenting?
Um, so I'm on the platform every single day for multiple hours per day. That's the first thing. So I'm on it. The other thing is I'm constantly doing it. So I'm not just going on and seeing what the new gadget is. I'm actually spending time using it. So I prospect, I do all the stuff that I tell other people to do. And also because I spend so much money with LinkedIn, I get invited to product updates. So I get to see the new gadgets before they come out most of the time.
Amazing. So, Dean, I'm assuming the best way to find you is Dean Seddon, Seddon, on LinkedIn, and Maverick, which is Maverrik.io. Is
Yep.
that
Yep.
the best way to connect with you?
Perfect. Come find me on LinkedIn, ask anything. Can't say I'll
And
reply and
really,
tell you, answer anything, but I'll have a go.
and this has been really fascinating, really educational. I hope people got a lot out of this content. And as you can see, Dean is the guy to go to. You can join. There's some really great free content as well. You can learn about how to get started on your first six figures. And when you do make your first $10,000, do get in touch and let us know how it went. So thank you, Dean Seddon, from founder and CEO of Maverick.io. Thank you.
Thank you.